Bob Smith joins me today, former managing editor of Pro Wrestling Illustrated and host of the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Bob, how's it going?
I'm doing fine. I'm overworked and underpaid, but I'm doing great. No, the underpaid part has nothing to do with it. But I am overworked because I started a second podcast called the Outdated Entertainment Hour. And I am loving doing that one. And I think our last two shows were the best we've ever done in terms of, we did a show with Brian Solomon about his great uncle, who was a character bit actor on Broadway. I thought it was an NPR quality slice of life on a podcast. I have never done a better podcast than that. And I couldn't. And I had an actor named Adam Baratow in the studio with us. And it's like, I just sat back and let them both talk. It was great. It's just such a human interest story. And, damn if I'm not enjoying podcasting, man. After all these years of getting back into wrestling, I'm finding that I like the nuts and bolts of podcasting even more. I may even start a third one. I'm serious. I'm having so much fun, and people are listening, which is even miraculous to my sensibility. So I'm really, really happy with the way things are going. And I have people like you to thank for it, because you were one of my earliest guests. And the fact that you're having me back here, well, I really appreciate it.
Well, I've been wanting to get you back on for quite some time. And me talking more old school stuff as of late, because we'll get into that as to why I'm talking more old school stuff, is I'm watching less and less modern wrestling. Let's be honest. I'm feeling the old, I guess you could say. But you were a guest on my show probably 2 years ago, maybe. And it's probably, I've always ranked that as one of my most fun episodes, the conversation. I think we both didn't expect it to go nearly as good. I mean, I thought that we were going to have a good show, but it ended up being an awesome show. We became pretty good friends over those next couple of years.
Yes, we did. And that's the best part of it. I have made so many friends doing this silly stuff, both live and in person and just cyber-wise. People that I bounce ideas off of, and we just talk, or we'll joke with each other online and stuff like that. It has been really cool. And another nice thing about the podcast is I'm meeting my old PWI compadres from back in the day, 30, 35 years ago, all the time now. I've hung out with Craig Peters 4 or 5 times in the last year, which is crazy. But we have, and it's been, he was one of my early guests on the show too. And it's like, it's just so good to see a lot of these people again after all this time. But the better part is, we all have something in common, and that's an enjoyment of old school wrestling. And that's what kind of brings people together. And you can't really shake that. It keeps the friendships going, I think.
I get a lot of time that I flack from some guys that I know around my area that are necessarily promoters and stuff that I've become very, very friendly with. They always complain that I have not evolved with the way that the sport has, and I don't really understand what necessarily that means. If I'm not involved because I don't like deathmatch wrestling, intergender wrestling, comedy wrestling, stuff like that.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't consider any of that to be wrestling. I'm right there with you. I'm on the boat with you. We're on the canoe together. It's like I will not cotton to it. I think that if wrestling ever dies, it'll be that kind of crap that kills it. I'm sorry. I just don't have a stomach for it. Deathmatch wrestling. I saw pictures of these deathmatch, and they seem like nice people. That's the weird part. These guys who are going at it with weed whackers and stuff, they're kind of cool. They're like, I don't know how you train to hit somebody else over the head with a fluorescent light tube, but apparently there is a skill to it, or they'd be killing each other left and right. Okay, I kind of respect them for that, but it's just to me, it's the whole thing is submental. Yeah, it's like I'd rather watch Gas House Gilbert versus S.D. Jones putting headlocks at each other for 15 minutes. I would. It's just, it's not wrestling. It's just shock. It's like shock radio used to be. People try to get away with sexual stuff on AM radio and stuff like that, just to shock people. Well, when you've seen your 5th death match in a row, who's shocked by anything at that point? So no, I'm just not into it. It's just, I would really like to see traditional wrestling, and it's being modernized as we speak. There's no question about that. But I think that a key thing that today's promoters don't do is go back to the past for concepts and ideas. It's been done forever in every entertainment form. People tend to ignore the past when they're promoters rather than embrace it and see what they can recycle. I think there's a lot of stuff that people did in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 80s, 90s that they could do today, but they just don't do it anymore. Like an Australian tag team match, you know what I
mean? I've gotten, did you see the clip of Hammerstone where somebody put a tie on him and lit fireworks attached to the tie?
No,
this made the rounds recently.
Missed it.
Yeah, good. Well, I always it was not entertaining, and I think that Hammerstone is probably one of the most sought after like free agents out there. Very popular. He's actually very good at what he does. But I saw that and I was kind of, when you think so highly of somebody as a professional wrestler and they do something so stupid like that, it's kind of disappointing in a way. You know what I mean? And I kind of chimed in online and it turned into a bunch of people ripping me apart because I liked traditional professional wrestling and started getting called grandpa. I'm only 50 years old, okay? So I started getting called grandpa and because I don't like hardcore or death match, I like to sit there, watch somebody in a wrist lock for 10, 15 minutes, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're older, my friend. I mean, it's two entirely different audiences from... I mean, I like the wild action. Somebody once called, I think Bill Cardille in Pittsburgh once called professional wrestling organized chaos. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's that sense of loose around the edges, around the rule book type of thing that makes wrestling appealing. That somebody could sneak like a foreign object into their trunks or hit somebody with an object outside the ring and not get caught. But there was a skill to the violence back in the day. There was a psychology to it. I don't understand how two people can hold, gardening sickles across the ring from each other. And you call it a sport. That's the Roman gladiator time stuff. And I will say, let me just allow me this too.
Absolutely.
I read a lot of wrestling Facebook, a lot of wrestling Twitter. I'm at my wit's end with both. It's getting submental at this point. And I don't mean to bash any wrestling fans out there, but you know what? The constant AEW versus WWE the war that isn't even really going on. The sides have been decided in that gang, and we all know what the truth is. So it's just, I'm just getting tired of the I'm right and you're wrong bit. But all social media is like that now. I'm right and you're wrong, and there's well, then you're an idiot if you believe that. I don't need it. It's not instructive. I do think I know quite a bit about professional wrestling, having started watching it in 1970 and been in the business for 7 or 8 years. So I don't know what to say other than I got to avoid it. It's not good for your health. It's not. I don't feel entertained by it anymore. I was really into just kibitzing with people online, and now it's starting to get old real fast.
Yeah. I'm using social media a little bit less and less as the days go by. It's kind of gotten on my nerves, so to speak. I used to use it specifically to find out upcoming shows, upcoming concerts, stuff like that, because it's like, it's not the times when we were younger. We used to open up a newspaper, you used to see whoever's coming to town, whatever band is coming to town, Toad's Place, whatever you want to call it. It's like, but now you have to be on social media for all this type stuff, and it's like, it's kind of like there's plenty of times where I just have to delete it from my phone and just not use it for a while because it's so frustrating to deal with these right and wrong type conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just the world is tense enough. I don't need more of it in my leisure time. We'll put it that way. So I'm weeding myself off of this stuff slowly, but. I have like 12,000 Twitter followers, and none of it had anything to do with wrestling. None of that. Most of that comes from the old days when I was a blues artist, when I was a singer and I had records out. Right. So the people who have continued to follow me there, it's been a drop off there, but still I got just about 12,000 Twitter followers, and about 9 of them were into wrestling. So I'm trying to build. So my question is, do I build up my Twitter wrestling following? How does that work at this point? I don't know, but I do know that I'm using social media as a conduit to talk to like-minded wrestling fans who I have gotten to know over the course of the last 4 years since they stepped back on the scene, and that's been working just fine. We have sometimes you ever get into a nice conversation where you talk about a great match and you go, "Oh, he did great in that match," and somebody else will chime in, and somebody else. And the next thing you know, you got a very long thread going. That's my favorite thing about wrestling social media.
And keeping it all positive as well, nothing ridiculous, but it's it can be a very good tool. It can be very fun as well. Sometimes the majority of the time, it's just not. And God knows, some stranger chimes in and it ends up being even worse. You know what I mean?
But this is why I'm so surprised at the success of my podcast. Because I went from the first episode to now, I shouted from the rooftops, I'm not doing a shoot show. I'm not interested.
Right.
I don't care about the locker room scuttlebutt, or this person said that, or this person backstabbed the other, or who's booking this guy that way. I don't care. I would rather reminisce about great moments, great cards, and great stars. To me, that's much more entertaining than, I don't book matches in my head when I watch it on TV either. I'm just letting the thing come to me as opposed to trying to be it. You know what I'm saying? Again, that's another way that the mindset of the fans has changed in recent years. They're booking in their heads. I never do. I want to be surprised. And the most disappointing thing about today's wide open everybody knows everything wrestling is a guest appearance on Raw or on a pay-per-view, right? Or something like that. Ooh, or not a guest appearance, a surprise comeback appearance. Everybody in the damn arena and at home knows what's going to happen if they're on social media. There's no secrets anymore. There's no surprising anybody anymore. I think the last time they did that was with CM Punk. They were able to keep that when he came back a couple of years ago. They were able to keep that on the QT. Yeah. Other than that, you see guys, oh my gosh, the announcers are screaming, look who's back. And then there's people in the stands holding up placards saying, welcome back, whoever it is. So they knew what was going to happen before it happened. How is that fun? How is that entertaining? Do you read a synopsis of a movie before you go see the movie? Right? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean, I think the thing that I liked about professional wrestling was the element of surprise and, I guess, for lack of a better term, the psychology of putting on a match. It's unpredictable. The unpredictability of professional wrestling was always the thing that got me so interested and lost in watching whatever match that you could think of, Flair and Steamboat, whatever, you know what I mean? It was just so enjoyable to sit there and watch something like that, and it was just excellent to get lost in the moment.
Amazing you bring that up, because Flair Steamboat at a house show in New Haven, Connecticut is one of the best wrestling matches I ever saw in my life, and it was a half house. It was just, they went at it just as hard in a half house as they would on a pay-per-view. It was just spectacular. They were, you know what? They were both at their peaks at that point. That helped. Steamboat was never better than he was at that point. And Flair was pretty doggone good too. And they started to get to know each other really well. And I think they had a similar psychology. And boy, did it work like gangbusters. I mean, a great series of matches. I'll never forget it. I think again, I consider that match at a house show the best I ever saw with my own eyes, live. What I mean is live. Right. I've seen better matches, throughout pay-per-views and stuff like that. But as far as being there, that one may be the best thing I ever saw.
That was New Haven, Connecticut, my hometown. Now, I used to go to just about every WWF house show that was there. When the NWA came through town, I wasn't able to go. So I missed that. You know what I mean? But the fact that it's you're mentioning that it was a house, like a half house. It's just, I find that was not necessarily a gigantic building either. Right. So I find that kind of amazing that the NWA coming into a strange territory, or I guess I shouldn't say territory, but strange town, WWF town, just kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of weird that it was a half house, because from what I understand, it's these were guys I watched every week on TV. I've seen the results, recently I saw them, and it's I would have gone to that if I could have gotten there, My parents always used to take me to wrestling. I was probably 13 years old, 14 years old. They wouldn't just drop me off at the Coliseum at that age.
I think I was working that night. Now, again, my memory's foggy because I'm 106 years old, but I think I was working that night and shooting ringside. And I think when it was all over and I had gotten plenty of shots from the beginning of that match, and I didn't want to hit the bar with the guys. I wanted to go home. I was working the next day or something. So what I did is I went up into the stands and just took a seat, because there were seats to be taken. And I just sat back and got into the second half of that match and went, whoa. Because I knew I had enough shots from the encounter. Didn't need a pin shot or anything like that. So at that point, I had enough. So I'm looking from the stands and I'm like, man alive. I just thought it was just spectacular. And I will say this. Back then, you could end a match with a small package and nobody booed. So Steamboat ended a lot of those matches with a small package, just a roll-up. And I'm like, today, if you ended a match with a roll-up, I think the fans would riot. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, and half the finishers from that people used to use back in the day, they're just kind of these days, modern days, like setup moves. They don't necessarily have the same impact. When's the last time you really saw like an abdominal stretch? Something like that. You know what I mean? It's not,
Oh
or
yeah.
somebody win with a backslide or something to that effect. You know what I mean? I've thought about this. I've tweeted about it, and it just as much wrestling as I do watch, you don't really necessarily see that. You know what I mean? As
No.
not that often. Like that stuff was, it was always great to see something like that back then.
The classic body slam I'm noticing less and less.
Yeah.
Like the traditional pick them up, the stiff bodied and bring them down to the mat. I don't see it as often. I also don't see the even non-move moves like the head into the turnbuckle. Not nearly as often. I think clotheslines are not as plentiful. You remember, go back to the Stan Hansen era, and then everybody was using the clothesline after a while. But super kicks are rampant. They're like a polite greeting. They practically super kick the ring announcer now when they walk into the ring. It's just they're all over the place.
You will see on any given independent show, you'll probably see 250 by the third match.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I know that might be a slight
I know.
exaggeration, but you see a lot of them by the third match, and it's just like, as many times as I see them, like, geez, because it's not just, a one move and then somebody just has gone down for the pin. They use it multiple times during the match, and it's like, what the hell is going on here? Shawn Michaels used that as a finisher for a very long time, and now people just get up from it, and that's it.
Chris Adams too. A
Chris
lot of
Adams, yeah.
wrestlers that era, yeah. But I will say this: if you're looking for innovative moves in today's wrestling, and when I say this, you'll go, "Oh yeah." If you're looking for innovative moves, things you don't see anywhere else, things done with precision, it's women's wrestling. The women's division in WWE is astounding. I mean, the things that these women do now. They do holds that don't even like people like Selena Vega will make your eyes bug out with some of the things she can do, and Naomi too. I'm not even talking the top rung of who's there. Chelsea Green is a fine athlete. Rhea Ripley's an astounding athlete. I mean, just go down the list. You see why they all have their spots. They all bring things to the table, and it's original and paced well. And frankly, I think the women are more entertaining than the men at this juncture in history, but that's just me. But they surprise me every time they show up on television.
The women's wrestling is definitely different these days. It's like you said, more innovative. It's a little bit more fun to watch on a lot of times. It's not as predictable. Rhea Ripley right now, I think, is probably the top star.
Yeah.
In women's wrestling. Yeah. And she's enjoyable to watch. At least I think so. She's very, as an athlete, and there's Selena Vega, like you mentioned, I think she's very good as well. I can't really think of any because I've been watching it less and less, like I said, unfortunately. I can't think off the top of my head.
I DVR everything and then I go back and skim through things. And if something looks interesting, I'll stop and look. Or if it's a main event, I'll look at that too. As we record this, I think SmackDown is on tonight. But then again, we're here.
Yeah.
So, so it's a situation where you can't watch everything. I try to keep my eyes on everything. I will never not watch wrestling, even if I'm not enjoying it. I just feel I have to have done it all these years. Why quit now? It's like, who knows? You never know. There's something changes the flavor of wrestling every 7 or 8 years. Something changes the mindset. If it's the NWO or if it's when AEW came about, where you took the top indie stars and put them all in one place, and just go on and so on and so forth. Something changes every several years. I'm waiting for that next change now, and I don't think the TKO WWE mergers is that. I don't think that's changed much, other than, damn it, at the end of last year's wrestling, they were all saying, I love professional wrestling at the end of the show. And then they go right back and start doing the dumb stuff like the Wyatt Six and, all the stuff that makes me want to hurl a chair out the window. And if you notice that Wyatt Six has completely disappeared, you know why? You can't go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere. It's so not believable and so unbearably phony It has a short. It was the same way the original Wyatt characters. You couldn't take them anywhere. They always had this like overarching evil countenance, but you can't do anything with it. You can only do so much as a bad guy wrestler. If you do more than that, you're doing death matches. You see what I'm saying? So it's like pro wrestling should never be that macabre. It shouldn't be that far out there. You can't make it believable. It won't work. You can't develop a storyline that makes sense. Either that or you end up with like the insane John Cena Bray Wyatt match at that WrestleMania where there was no fans in the stands. There's another debacle with John Cena in it. You know, people forget that mess. So again, I missed my original point because I'm way off in the Wyatts. I'm just.
You just can't go anything with it.
I understand he was a nice guy, a wonderful man, good family man, and I mourn his loss along with everyone else. I just thought that it was a bad angle. Virtually 75%. I like the early Wyatts better than the spooky Wyatts at the end with all the macabre stuff. It was just, you can't go anywhere. Again, you cannot go anywhere with it. You can't do anything with it.
I liked when he first came in as Bray Wyatt. Somewhat, because he reminded me.
Yeah.
He kind of reminded me of Waylon Mercy a little bit. You know what I mean? Danny Spivey when he came in the '90s, like with the Hawaiian shirts which was based off of Robert De Niro's character in Cape Fear.
Right.
So, and it was more interesting, and he cut really good promos when he was doing that. So once he became the Fiend, you couldn't really do anything. You know what I mean? It was kind of boring, and horror gimmicks like that, to me, they don't do anything for me. But there's a lot of people that absolutely loved that character. They made a replica belt with the mask. They sold it with what's the guy, Tom Savini, the horror makeup artist. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people seem to love it. I was not one of those people. I could not get into it at all.
Well,
I'd rather watch guys like Billy Robinson.
Yeah, me too. But horror and wrestling can't work. I mean, if you go way back to the late 70s when California was holding on LA, and they brought that Frankenstein character, whatever they call it, the monster or whatever, supposedly made in a dungeon by this mad scientist or something, and the fans went, "This is stupid." Whatever the 7 fans they had left all went, "This is stupid." And even Memphis, I love Memphis, and I love Jerry Lawler, but he would have these monster faces with Tagar from outer space and stuff like that, and another wrestler dressed just like Frankenstein. It never works. You can't sustain it. It's just
Memphis was really good at that because they would bring those guys. I'm sorry to cut you off. They would bring in these characters more often than they should. Like they had the Batman. You know what I mean? They had the guy Goliath, which was Bubba White, who became one of the Moondogs. They had they had another character. I'm trying to think that I forgot who it was. I'm trying to think. Either way, if it comes to me, I'll mention it. But it's like they had all these outlandish characters that would last probably a couple weeks there, and sometimes they would only be on one episode and then just disappear completely.
Well, when I was in Memphis, I was on the episode with Leatherface on it. Again, you could only go so far with a guy with a chainsaw. He's not going to carve anybody in half. It's just, if your premise can't be done, don't do it. But then there were other Leatherfaces that went on to star in Japan and do all this other stuff. So, who am I to say? I just once something gets way past any semblance of believability, I have no stomach for it. I really don't want to see it. Yeah. But again, wrestling is always in times of, well, look at the pandemic in the WWE with the eyeball match with Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio and setting Bray Wyatt on fire and stuff like that. Desperation calls for, really dumb angles, extreme angles.
Yes.
And even AEW was doing some too. They were so desperate just to keep things going. Yeah, to me, don't be desperate. Put a good wrestling match on. Give me Gunther versus anybody on the freaking roster. I'll watch it. That kind of thing. Just give me a good match.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, Gunther is probably like the greatest professional wrestler today. He's like a legit professional wrestler, and he represents, to me, the old school. And I understand that he's just like really into the history of the business, from what I understand.
Really
Yeah, I read that
fascinating
recently.
guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you've ever seen a picture of like from 7, 8 years ago, Gunther and Damian Priest, what they look like when they were just starting out.
Yeah.
They don't even resemble who they look like now. Talk about guys who have busted their asses to get better in every conceivable way. It's incredible.
I got
It just goes to show you, if you stick with this business, you can succeed in this business if you do it right.
even when Gunther first signed with WWE when he was part of the NXT UK, he was still not necessarily the man he is now in the last couple of years. He was still kind of chubby a little bit, but he was still one hell of a professional wrestler on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it looked completely different than he did. But, you know, he really worked his ass off, got in really good shape, and became one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling today. We'll call it professional wrestling because that's why we're here.
Oh, I agree. I mean, he's
Yeah.
just the matches are so good. And the matches are so good. And you know what? And we've seen him against Jey Uso now. We've seen him against Damian Priest. We've seen him against a whole host of different opponents. And the matches are always good. It doesn't even seem to matter who the opponent is. He's that good.
Yeah. Let me ask you, now that you mentioned Jey Uso, and I know Mania was, 2 months ago now, or something, or a month and a half ago. I know we talked off here and prior, and I listened to your episode where it was sorely disappointing. I don't want to go completely into the whole entire WrestleMania, but what did you think of the Gunther Jey Uso match from WrestleMania? Did you think it lived up to the matches that they had prior, uh, or what was your opinion, really, honestly? Because thinking about it, it's like, I know myself, I was kind of disappointed in the entire match for the most part.
The build to it was so long and so dramatic, particularly the thing where he attacked Jimmy Uso, which was really the capper of the angle that led to the match itself. You know, they strung it out for about 7 or 8 weeks. And it was really jarring, the match with, so much blood and all that other stuff. So by the time they got around to the main event, and it turned out to be really just kind of a match, you kind of forgot about the whole build-up at that point. It wasn't awful, but it certainly wasn't one of Gunther's shining moments either. That was the previous SummerSlam, I thought. When Gunther lost his mind, he was great. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I'd give it a C plus B minus at best. It wasn't a really, really great match that we were expecting. But I don't think Jey Uso did anything wrong either.
Right.
I just think that, you know what it looked like? It looked like we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and then he just did it. It wasn't, it doesn't look improvised. It looked very rigidly pre-planned what they were going to do in the ring. And sometimes that shows. Yeah. And I think that was the secret to why that looked the way it did.
Do you think Uso's title reign is going to last for a while? Or do you see him like maybe losing it in a couple months?
I see him losing it in a couple months.
Yeah.
Because, in a way, it's the number 2 title, too, even though they don't come out and say that. I think the one on SmackDown is really the major title, and what Uso has is equal in name, but not really in stature. So I think that is the one that's going to change hands more often, I believe. And I can see that nobody having that belt longer than 6 months.
I don't understand why they created that belt, to be honest with you, because they unified both belts that they had, and was it Roman they with that unified the 2 titles, right? It was the Universal so. And then the WWE title.
Yeah.
But then it was like a month, 2 months later, whatever it was, they announced that they were bringing another major title, world title, and I was just like, that's the most ridiculous. And it's like, what was the point of them unifying the titles if they're just going to basically create or take one away from that Universal Undisputed Championship, whatever you want to call it? I have no idea because it's got such a long title now what it's called anymore.
If it was up to me, and it's not, but if it was, you have an organization with a name on it, and the organization should have one top title.
Yes.
You can have a bunch of other titles, but they both shouldn't be world, or the world word should be for both of them. It should be one world champion. It just makes things more. It's just more logical to me. And have that champion go back and forth between the two shows. Who cares? Raw
Yeah.
versus SmackDown and all this stuff. That's who cares? There's no dominant brand. It's the same thing on two different channels. That's all it is. So I
Yeah.
say have one dominant championship with a dominant champion on top. Whoever your organization's figurehead is should be that champion.
Yeah. To me, it's just, I think a lot of it's just marketing because like they are selling a crap ton of merchandise right now. Like that's it.
They are.
That's where their big thing is. And then they're selling a crap ton of retro merchandise as well. I mean, I went out and bought myself one of those new Bruno Sammartino shirts. Was it 2 years ago at Survivor Series? I bought it because that's what I wanted. You know what I mean? I said, I'm definitely, because I had that in my head that I was going to buy that. And it ended up just, they sell a lot of stuff like that. And in every Hall of Fame, they always make the retro shirts of whoever's getting inducted. They're selling all that kind of stuff. Everything is merchandising and selling and selling. And they might be like one of the biggest companies in the world right now, but I don't think necessarily for wrestling fans. I think it's just more so it's the Coca-Cola, McDonald's. You're not getting the quality, but you're getting the, the build or whatever. You're getting less of a quality as far as like, say, like McDonald's, Burger King, Coca-Cola, stuff like that. Catch my drift?
Well, you've segued into another great point about today's WWE. I often say I want to talk to Triple H and I want to ask him one question. That question would be, as an organization and as a corporation, does WWE care even a little bit about a fan with as much as one single gray hair on the top of their heads? Because it seems the marketing is like a pyramid, and on top of that pyramid is the youth market. Now, there's nothing wrong with that because the youth market has the money. They're the ones buying the tickets. They're telling their parents to bring them to the matches. And when they show up, they buy 8 T-shirts and whatever else is for sale and so on and so forth. I understand all of that. But I think this is how they get away with getting away from traditional matchmaking too. Because, I think we complain about the fan who's there booking and head along. There is also the third class of fan who are high schoolers and younger. There are way more kids that go to wrestling matches now, and therefore way more women that go to wrestling matches than when you and I were kids. I don't think there's any question about that. I think it's a family night out now, whereas when I was in high school, we would all get together on the QT and go, because if the girls knew we like wrestling, we'd never get a date. I'm serious. And all of a sudden, wrestling's cool, and it's cool because they've figured out that rock star-ism with the wrestlers. They all have their own song. They all have their own entrance. They all have their own boom. When they enter the arena, it's everybody's got a catchphrase too. Everybody loves the catchphrase, be it Yeet or L.A. Knight or whatever. Yeah, and all that. It is what it is. So, but again, I think when you're booking for that type of demographic, it almost doesn't matter what the match quality is. It's like just keep them hot, keep them getting over, keep them selling that merch. You wonder if it's 95% sizzle now and 5% steak, because it's like, you see some matches where you can tell it's really the matches themselves are conduit to go buy this T-shirt. You've seen it yourself. I mean, it happens all the time.
I mean, look at, Chad Gable coming out with the El Grande Americano shirt. You know what I mean? It's a working advertisement. You know what I mean? Or what have you. Or Jey Uso coming out in a Yeet shirt. It's a walking advertisement. So somebody on their way out the door going to go visit the merch booth. Merch booths are still open at the end of the night. You know what I mean? So you're making way more money at the end of the night, probably the last 20 minutes while everybody's emptying out of the arena.
Yep. I'm sure that's true. Absolutely sure it's true.
Yeah. I mean, there's no intermission in shows anymore. You know what I mean? That's long gone. And people got to get their merch then, before the shows. People got to get the merch, I don't know, during the popcorn match, what have you. Not a lot of that stuff, time to do that stuff. People are buying all the stuff online as well. So, it's a family night out. But I want to know, how could a family afford to go out, especially for the price that tickets are these days? Now that they're doing, I think it was late last year, earlier this year, they said that they were doing less house shows. They're getting away from that market. and especially overseas, they'll probably see stuff like that, like on tours. You know what I mean? Um, but here where we are, they're probably doing less and less just so they can advertise or put big money into, say, the Mondays, the Fridays, and the big pay-per-view events or PLEs, whatever you want to call them, and so they can sell more merchandise and raise the ticket prices as well. $400 for the cheap seats or what have you. I mean, and then what's the front row? $2,000, $3,000. And then imagine the pay-per-views. The prices are probably double, triple for that. I have no idea how people could afford to go out. Me and my buddies just go out for a WWE show anymore. It's been right when the pandemic was coming back. It was still kind of like the tail end. I went to a SmackDown on a Friday and then a Survivor Series on a Sunday. I think I got my Survivor Series dirt cheap, actually. I got them for $30 online. It was like the day before the show. It was like a last minute decision that because they got them so cheap when we drove up to Brooklyn for the show.
You talk about prices. Prices have been a theme on my show like the last 3 or 4 weeks because I still can't believe what I found out about WrestleMania prices. Like on Facebook, some well-meaning fan took a picture of what he saw from his $400 upper deck seat in that football stadium. You saw nothing. Another person filmed himself looking at his cell phone the entire card, watching Peacock on his cell phone because he couldn't see anything either. Now, people paid extreme amounts of money to sit up in the catacombs. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's right. If you've got an obstructive view seat, or it's too far away literally to see the ring, and because of the placement of the lighting and all that other stuff, I don't think it's right. I just think why are you biting the hand that's feeding you, gold bullion all the time? Fans are paying at the yin yang for these seats, and some of them I wouldn't go under any circumstance. Of course, I wouldn't go to sit in the top of a football stadium even to see a football game. That's just me. But you know what I'm saying? I can see charging somebody $75, $50 to sit in the top of a stadium. I can't see $300 for anything at the top of a stadium. And I don't care what the show is.
I went to WrestleMania 35. And that was the last WrestleMania I'd been to. Was at the MetLife in Jersey. Got the section right off the floor. It was like the next level up. I think they were, and this was 6, 7 years ago, something like that. So I think our tickets were $250, $300 each. My wife actually bought them as a Christmas gift for me and my son. So we went, and the view was not good by any means. It was by the stage. And that was when in the midst of when they were doing those like 7-hour shows. They started with the pre-shows, then that they were airing exclusive matches on, and then they started relatively early, and it went on until 12:30 at night. And it was just crazy because it wasn't until, now mind you, it was light, you couldn't really see the ring until it got darker, and then so I found myself watching the screens in the building the majority of the time. Which to me was just crazy because you couldn't necessarily, even though I was the second up off the floor, I still really couldn't see that well from there. And I thought that was kind of insane.
That's what a lot of people are doing. They're going and spending hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and to watch the screens. It's amazing to me. It's amazing. You know what? Word's going to catch on about that stuff. I'm sorry. Word is going to catch on, and people are going to really think hard about the next one. If SummerSlam, I'll count SummerSlam as the next big one because that's another 2-night deal. I want to see if they fill that. I think they're back in Jersey for that too, aren't they? So I want to see if they fill those buildings for that because you know what? People are going to know. They're going to know. They're going to know that if you sit in a certain area, you're going to be craning your neck to even see a hot dog vendor, let alone Gunther. So let's see if they can sell out the way they have been. I'm frankly starting to think that wrestling belongs in nothing bigger than a hockey arena because of the basis you're looking at a ring in the middle of the place. Keep it so everyone can see it at least.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wanted to ask you, what do you think them adding SummerSlam, like an extra night to SummerSlam, now doing 2 nights for SummerSlam? Do you think that they need something like that? To me, I find it ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? WWE's gotten so big that you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Didn't they just do a one-night pay-per-view and everybody went, oh, they only had 6 matches? Where was this one? Where was that one? Where was my favorite star? He wasn't on the card. But when you do the 2-night one, it's like, oh, this is too much. It's overkill. So what the WWE's gotten so big, if you produce a 6-match card on a one night, you're leaving 75% of your roster off of the bill. So I kind of understand the 2-night thing because the roster is so huge now, and so many guys women are getting pushed that you need the time. However, that's a lot of wrestling 2 nights. And you got to go if you want to see the whole thing. You got to go. You're flying in from all over the country. You're buying 2 nights worth of tickets. I think it's almost gotten so overblown and so crazily big now. Everything is big. The entrances are big. The pyro is big. The arenas are bigger. I don't know. It almost seems daunting, eye-jarring, and kind of an endurance test. When I go out to be entertained, I want to just sit back, relax, and enjoy what I can see in front of me. If none of those factors apply once I've spent my $1,000 on a ticket, why am I going?
Jimmy Valiant, Boogie Woogie, man. Legendary Boogie Woogie. Wait a minute, baby. Wait a minute. Hang on. What are you doing around Who was that calling you, buddy?
This is our neighborhood.
You done made a young man's game.
You should be retired, Boogie.
Wait a minute, boys. Let me take a bite of my king dog.
You say king dog?
King dog?
Is that what he said?
What? What happened? Come on, boy.
Don't let hunger bully you. Get yourself a king dog and you too can become a super hunger fighter.
Secondhand Heroes and Home for Wayward Villains is a comic book shop and gaming store that also features Magic the Gathering and D&D. Located at 18184 Leesville Road in Evanston, Virginia, Secondhand Heroes is your one-stop shop for you to get your nerd on. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. They don't close until the dice stop rolling. They buy, sell, trade, barter, and haggle, specializing in collectible toys, both vintage and modern, comics, Magic the Gathering, video games, console, and arcade cabinets to play, all set to free play. Host your game night with us. Monday night D&D video game competitions, and so much more. Something for the collector and gamer in us all. Call 434-317-0121 or shoot us an email with any questions to secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. Note, secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. That's 2ND, handheroesva@gmail.com. Come game with us.
We're talking about $4,000 tickets now. If you're buying those, it's 2 nights in a row. So you're spending, God knows how many people. Say if you take your wife and kids, you know what I mean? You're spending a lot of freaking money. Who's got money like that these days? Honestly.
If you buy the cheapest seats there, you're spending a ton of money. You have to eat.
Yeah.
If you come from out of town, there's driving, there's tolls, there's whatever's going on. Or if you're flying from a different city, there's hotels, which are not getting any cheaper. I mean, it's a major expenditure. It's like you have to look at it almost like it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Now, those once-in-a-lifetime buyers from the last WrestleMania, will they go down that route again? I am keen to find out what happens. I'm saying no. I'm betting that a good 15 to 20% of the people there did not have a good time. I'm serious. That's the vibe I'm getting from social media. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any blowback at their next bigger, better, badder, bigger event, you know, the 17-night Wrestle Blasto or something. You know, it's just you can only get so big, guys. You can only get so big.
Well, when's the next? They're going to take something kind of like if you look at say New Japan, right? I haven't really watched it in quite some time, but they'll do like a series of shows under the same title for like a week. You know what I mean? Like whatever the series. I can't think. You know what I mean? But it's like, is WrestleMania or WWE going to do that? Do 3 nights, 4 nights of WrestleMania over a week period? Not that they really run weeknight shows anymore outside of Mondays and Fridays. I'm talking about like live events, like live, like PLEs basically. Do the biggest of the big several nights in a row.
I don't think America has.
It's too much.
I don't think America has the attention span for that. I don't think they have the attention span for that. I just don't. I don't. That's. Oh gosh! Imagine. No, that's. What's next? A PLE every day? Just do a PLE every day. What the heck? And, and you know what? And do one on when they colonize Mars. We have to do one on Mars too. You know, bigger, better, bigger. Where's it end? Can't I just watch a nice match? Can I see a good match between two good wrestlers? Yeah, sitting in a seat where I can see the ring, wouldn't that be a nice thing?
There's wrestling on 7 nights a week now, basically. Think about it. WWE's probably on, 4 or 5 out of those, whatever brand that they have, whether it be NXT, Raw, SmackDown. Now they started Evolve on Tubi. I don't know how many people are watching that. I really don't. I'd like to check the numbers at some time because I've caught a few episodes. I've enjoyed it for the most part, but and then they have A&E series where they're running 3 shows back to back on A&E. Is it A&E? With LFG, the greatest moments, and then whatever the next one is. There's another show there. I forgot. I have them all on my DVR, but I don't watch all of them really anymore. And then there's just stuff on every single night of the week for if you're a wrestling fan. When does a wrestling fan, WWE fan, get tired, or a wrestling fan in general get tired of watching everything? It's on so often.
I think the key to their success is you do have people that watch like a one or the other, but not both. Like I bet there's some people who watch just Raw, or some people that watch just SmackDown, or some people that just look at highlight shows on their own website or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't think. I think even fans who like it a lot don't watch every minute of it. I can't see that happening. And that's maybe why they fashion Raw and SmackDown to be different than each other, so that people don't get overexposed to it. Because if you notice, every SmackDown has a Raw recap, and every Raw has a SmackDown recap. So you don't really need to see it because they are going to refer to it. So I think that maybe they're being canny in the way that they present them all, so that if you miss one, if you definitely watch one and miss the other, you haven't missed a lot. You'll still get a feeling for what's going on, in the major angles from just watching one of the 2 shows. So I think they do that pretty smartly, actually.
And then there's people that will sit there and just watch highlights on, say, TikTok or YouTube Shorts or what have you, when they'll do that stuff as well, instead of just watching any of the full shows at all. I know a lot of people just be like, I'll watch the clips on TikTok or YouTube or Facebook Reels, stuff like that, which that has become immensely popular because, as you said earlier, it's about the attention span. How much are some people even watching to get to even know what's really going on? They're just watching clips.
Are those ticket buyers though?
Yeah.
Good point, right?
That's a good one. That's a good question.
Are the people that are just skimming through it avid enough fans to go out and see a live event? Or are they shortchanging are they shooting themselves in the foot, even allowing anything to be diced and sliced and put on other forms of social media? Because, I would think the whole idea, even with today's advances in technology, is they want people to go out there and buy tickets or buy Peacock or buy Netflix or wherever they're shown, So the question is, does slice and dice in your product, a nice stew, produce a ticket buyer or a network buyer? Now you have to buy a network. Let's just say it. You got to buy Peacock. You got to buy Netflix to see this stuff. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I bet I think the answer for the slice and dice people is no. They only look at the highlights no matter where they're shown, and that's all they look at. I think that's the ultimate wrestling fan cheapskate way of knowing what's going on without actually watching the product.
Yeah. And most of it's not even matches of highlights. It's usually run-ins or some big move, stuff like that. Or just like a section of a promo that went off. You know what I mean? And then it gets like millions and millions of views.
I wonder how many people. I also wonder how many people just rely on like Wrestling Observer website and the other websites, all these websites that will do WrestleMania like card results. Even CBS Sports does this stuff now. Forbes magazine has a wrestling. Do you know that Forbes website has a wrestling section, and they do match results and everything else.
When did that even start? When did the Forbes even start? Because I think it came up in my timeline.
A long time
suggested,
ago.
like,
a long time ago. I've been reading that guy for a long time. He always says the same blurb after his name, and they've been doing it at least 7-8 years now. Longer than you would think. Yeah.
Wow,
he's good
I didn't
too.
even know
He's a good writer. I like him.
But, it's covered everywhere. Like now, there's millions of websites now. Honestly, obviously, when in the infancy of the internet, it was the Observer when they opened their site. There was One Wrestling, and then with Mike Johnson and his group over at PW Insider, stuff like that. It was just kind of interesting when there was fewer sites. I mean, I used to read the hard copies of the Observer and the Torch back in the day, and a couple other newsletters that I could think of. You know what I mean? Back in the day, and it was
even Sports Illustrated is doing stuff on wrestling now. Who doesn't do stuff on wrestling now? I mean, it's reached that point of saturation. Whether it's a good or a bad thing, it's up to the But for match results, I'll be honest. I'm kind of old fashioned. I will go to the Observer website. First and foremost, because that's the guy I've relied on my whole professional life to get results from was Dave Meltzer. So that's basically what I still use to this day. I don't even look anywhere else, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I still read it daily. I listen to their podcasts daily. Brian has a lot of great podcasts, and him and Meltzer, I think they gel well when they're having discussion, and I like when they argue too. That's, to me, that gets me. So, but I've been a fan of theirs for decades now, probably 30 years, close to 30 years, if not longer. It's kind of wild that they've been around longer.
We've done a lot of discussion about
Dave's been around for almost 50, I think.
Yeah, we've done a lot of discussion about Dave Meltzer on my show, and my considered opinion is, people who get upset at his match ratings, and I'll say it here on your show, I don't care about his match rating. I don't care about the star system. I don't care about any of that stuff. There's a difference between Dave Meltzer's opinions and Dave Meltzer's reporting and hard news gathering over the course of what's got to be 45 years now or something crazy like that. As a journalist in that regard, he's the best there's ever been, and I don't care what anybody has to say about anything. He's the most complete and accurate compiler of information, taking wrestling seriously for the first time that ever came about. He changed the whole tone of wrestling news gathering. Rather than what the magazines were doing, he looked at it like he was working for a newspaper. And you know what? I give him his total props for that. And back in my day, you had people go, "Oh, he's exposing the business. He's ruining the business." He actually didn't. He actually popularized it with a group of fans who never would have watched it without that type of serious coverage. So Dave's a Hall of Famer. I don't care what he says. Even now, I don't care about his opinions. All I care about is did Tony Garea and Rick Martel beat the Moondogs that night? He was the guy reporting that stuff before anybody else did. So, hats off to him. I don't care.
I agree with you. I think he's the best in the game. There's a lot of people it's the youngsters that just give him crap that have not been reading him for 45, 50 years, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? This guy has been top of the game for very long. And you just mentioned a future guest next week. I will be recording a new episode with Tony Garea next week. So
really,
he is my guest. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I reached out to him and he gladly accepted. So
I am pleased for you. I think this is great. You know why? Because I haven't heard him talk to anybody in a long time. So I gotta, be in touch with you after the show to get the release date on that, because I have to hear this. That's exciting even to me. That's my jam. That's my era. So I want to hear Tony Garea.
It'll be coming out next Tuesday. I don't know the date yet. Whatever that next Tuesday is, which will be, I'll tell you in a minute as soon as my calendar comes up. Stanley Carr, he recorded an episode with him, and it'll be coming out June 3rd. That's the date that'll be on. Tony Garea will be here. I'll be chatting with him regarding his professional wrestling career and much, much more. Stanley Carr, I guess he had recorded an episode which is about to be dropped, and I reached out to Stanley. I said, how'd you get in touch with him? He gave me his information. I got in touch with him, and Tony gladly accepted within seconds. You know what I mean? I waited he returned a message within 20 minutes, and we had a little conversation, and that was it. So I'm announcing it here now that Tony Gurria will be next week's guest.
You folks can't see, but I'm rubbing my hands together in glee because it's like, that's the 70s, man. I remember I was there to see his WWF debut way back in 72. And nobody in the history, a man that size, has ever thrown a higher drop kick than when he first started out. His drop kicks were spectacular. Now you're going, Tony Gurria threw drop kicks? The answer is yes, he did. If you go to even to the Martel tag team, he wasn't drop kicking at that point. But in the beginning, he was a spectacular athlete. I think he came from the Steve Rickard, factory of Australian wrestlers. I really do. And when he came over, he was ready. And I say it to this day, the most exciting wrestling match I ever saw on television was, I think it was 73, him and Haystacks Calhoun beating Tanaka and Fuji for the World Tag Team Championships. I don't know which of the Pennsylvania arenas, but the place came unglued. And at the pinfall, huge Haystacks is covering Fuji, and Gurria gets on his back, stands on his back, and raises his fist in the air in triumph. It's the greatest finish I've ever seen on television. I can't back it up because there's no tape, but I am telling you, it was the most exciting moment, and I was only in my early teens at that point, and it meant something back then. So I've been a kind of a Gurria fan ever since then, and I'm anxiously looking forward to hearing what a career he had, not only, in the ring, but years after that as a agent, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, he was like one of the agents. Anytime there was a brawl, he'd be one of the guys that were breaking it up. Him, Rene Goulet, guys like that, coming out, ripping them, So, I remember, this is a funny part about it, when he confirmed with me. I was actually with my wife in the car picking up a pizza. I'm like, oh, great. I'm excited. She goes, who the hell is Tony Gurria? I was like, never mind. You'll never understand. She's not a wrestling fan. She doesn't understand the excitement and how awesome it is. So,
no, that's a big one. So, congratulations on that. I think that's awesome.
So let's talk about the Outdated Wrestling Hour, what you're up to today, because I thoroughly enjoy the podcast. I am a frequent listener. There's not many podcasts I actually listen to, and it's usually about stuff that is outdated. Just like me. Ow. No, that was the concept. And you know what? I honestly think, and I have had secret help along the way from people that would surprise you. One of them suggested, when it first came out, it was called the Outdated Wrestling Hour. And now it's called the Outdated Wrestling Hour with Bob Smith. And you may wonder why. It's not ego. Somebody in the business said, put your name on it. They'll know who you are. They may not know what the show's about without your name on it, that type of thing. Anybody who knows me knows it was PWI. So I said, okay, that makes sense. And the second change in the show is to incorporate a lot of stuff that's not wrestling at all. Just old-timey stuff. Like lately, Joe Pucci and I have been having these huge discussions about, he's the co-host, by the way, now. And there's another addition to the show. We brought Joe Pucci online. As it turns out, he only lives about 5 miles from where I record. I didn't know that when I was getting to know him. He has a history with the Sheets. He worked with Meltzer and Dave Keller and people like that. So we have developed a really strong friendship, and we are getting all kinds of plaudits for our discussion of Carvel products lately. And it's just struck a nerve with people. Like, he never had a Fudgy the Whale till recently, or a Cookie Puss. And people go, yeah, I know about the Cookie Puss. It surprises what people enjoy. But the idea is keep it upbeat, keep it, I wouldn't say light, but I'm finding, I listen to podcasts that aren't wrestling related at all, a lot of them. All right, different type of shows. Some are political, some are just plain talk. Others are on certain subject matters, right? And the one thing I've noticed is the real successful ones sound like a good conversation, where the participants actually forget they have headphones and they're just talking to each other, like you and I are doing now, right? I think that leads to very, very good podcasts. So the addition of Mr. Puccio, I think, has led me into
that area so we can start each show, on a light note or on something that isn't specifically hard-ass wrestling all the time. I learned that you just look at Jim Cornette show. They talk about his crabgrass for the first 15 minutes of many shows. So I'm finding out there's a key to that. Make people feel the camaraderie in the studio, and I think it translates to listeners. And I am shocked, man. I am. When I started on my own after John Rizzi gave me the bums rush off his show, and I'm saying it out loud now, I got nothing to lose. I am shocked at the people who remember me from 35, 37 years ago at this point. It's absolutely stunning to me. I didn't, even when I was doing it, even when I was a younger guy working at the magazines, I did not know the impact and value that the work had on a lot of people. I really didn't consider that. And when I left the business entirely, I didn't consider that. And I now think one of the big mistakes I ever did, I worked for other wrestling magazines too, was leaving the business entirely. I don't think I should have done it. I think I had a better reputation for myself than I realized I had, if that makes any sense. Because my phone was always ringing, and at one point I stopped answering it. I just didn't want to be involved in wrestling anymore because of the debacle of PWI moving away, and I couldn't go with them. So I just swallowed hard. I got a job in another format of a magazine. But to make a long story short, people remember that stuff, man. It flabbergasts me. It really does. I'm not a wrestler. I wasn't a lead announcer on a TV show, although I did a few things on TV. But I was just a guy writing articles, and people remembered it. So I figured, why not just go with it? Just go with it. If you're entertaining people now, that's the icing on the cake of my whole wrestling career, And I think it has been. And I don't have any intention of stopping. The success has been too crazily good. I mean, shoot, we have never not charted. I'm not saying we're number 1 or number 10. We'll never be. But when I land in the 40s, that's fine. Or the 50s, 60s. In terms of the top 200 wrestling, there's 900 wrestling podcasts out there. If I'm in the top 100 every episode, that's it. What more do I need? And I'm doing it, and I hardly promote the damn thing. All I know how to do is social media, and I just kind of make announcements. And that's all the promotion I do. That's it. So that means to me people are having fun. And if they're having fun, I'm having fun, and vice versa. And the idea of this is to have some fun before I kick. You know what I mean? Because I'm not as young as I used to be. Shoot.
I mean, I've had fun. I've been on your show 3 times now, and it's kind of amazing. And I enjoyed listening to your show. Obviously, I remember you from reading magazines. I have a box of old wrestling magazines. I think I started looking through them. I saw your name in there. I sent you a couple pictures of some of them I found, and it's it's one of the better shows out there. Not don't sound like I'm kissing your butt or anything, but I really enjoy the show. It's fun. And I was a regular listener to Rezzy's podcast, but it's it's I don't want to say anything mean, but it's not as enjoyable as it once was, in my opinion.
It's over.
Yeah,
I believe now. From what I was told recently, that he suspended operations on that particular show, and basically, I think he had already redone all his shows. The review of the show between the Brian last year's and then when I was on in the end there. So I think he's redone all his old shows, and there's really no place left to go with it. But no, I just I will say this about the podcasting thing. When I started to get into this, if you listen to my first show to my current shows, it's miles different. I mean, it's like I was just gabbing into my $19 mic on my first show. I have invested in equipment. I have learned how to edit. I do the whole thing myself. I don't farm out any of the work. And I edit like a professional recording studio engineer. I do. And then when it's done, I master it, So I'm enjoying the minutia of the work as much as I am talking to people. I'm enjoying the producing and the editing far more than I thought I would. And all I want is for people to hear it really clearly. That's a big deal with me. There's some wrestling shows, I'll be honest, there's some wrestling shows I would listen to. I can't hear them. The sound is so bad, I cannot hear them. I want to hear some of these people.
So they sound like they're talking into a coffee can. Some people,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. My show is like improved greatly the production of it, and I do everything myself.
Yeah.
And it's I bought better microphones over the years. I bought better computer. I bought all this stuff. I use better programs now.
Dude, even the cables I use are meant for audio. The ones that
Yeah.
go into the computer system. I'm learning about transfer rates and all this other stuff. I've been having a good time, and Micro Center should give me the key to the warehouse, because I've done so much business with Micro Center buying various electronics over the last 3 years. No, I'm having a blast doing it. That's basically the whole thing. And you add the entertainment show on top of it. I'm just having fun, man. This has been a stone cold gas. And the fact that, people like you listen to it, and other people that I respect, and Brian Solomon tells me he listens to every show, and Brian Solomon listens to every one of my shows. I mean, to me, that's as good a compliment as I would ever want to have. I'm still trying to build the audience, though, but I'm afraid that, these audiences can only go so far. If I'm talking about Joe Turco from 1973, how many people around that even know who Joe Turco is at this point? Or, Johnny Rods, or the guys from that era. The 70s were my jam, and the 70s are a long way away now. So what I'm hoping is people will hear me talk about those people, and then go on YouTube, and then go on Dave Dynasty's or Chris B. Lettuce, or all those other guys, or the Mario Savoldi tremendous tape library that he has. Go on some of these places and find what I'm talking about. It's good stuff.
Let's talk about that tape library. Why not for a few minutes? I find more and more amazing things being uploaded, and they're acquiring more and more libraries as as we speak right now. It's like they have. I think when they started it, they said they had over 5,000 hours, and this was 2 years ago. The app started roughly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they've bought several libraries since. I think they bought the Central States Library. They bought the Pacific Northwest Library. They have a kind of partnership with the Wrestling Legends Network by, what the hell's his name? I forgot those guys' name. I'm sorry. Adam, whatever. And, either way. So they're buying tapes from there as well. So they have some amazing, amazing things. They own some AWA stuff because they did stuff in partnership with them. And, some of the early USWA stuff from Texas. I mean, it just keeps getting better and better. And I've been a subscriber since day one, and I thoroughly enjoy it. There's plenty of times on a Saturday morning when I have nothing to do. I'll sit there with my coffee and watch hours of old IWCCW or ICW stuff, every time something new comes out. It's so much fun, that channel. And it was great to, I speak to, it was great speaking to Mario when he was a guest on this show, and it was a lot of fun learning so much about him and his family. And, I speak to Daniel every now and again. It's just, there's so much greatness going on there and on their network, I think.
That's it. Yes, I agree. And learning about it, I met Daniel at the Hall of Fame that they had here in Albany last year, and it looks like we're going back this year too. They are doing a heck of a job, and it's cheap. It's one of the cheaper things you can buy, and I try to keep myself from watching it too much, because I'm an old IWA fan. I'm talking about the Jack Reynolds stuff and all that.
They just I think they just uploaded a bunch of old IWA recently. So
yeah, they're having a festival or something. They're calling it a special time with the IWA. So it's like, man alive. I mean, when the IWA was new in '75, me and my friends used to get together to go to the local bowling alley. We were all underage, but they let us sit at the bar at midnight and watch the wrestling. It was great. So I don't know what to say other than between Mario's thing, and you got Chris B. Lettuce's thing, and you got Dave Dynasty bringing back old Bruiser Bedlam shows, and this and that, and just some nameless, faceless person out there who brings back a show and posts it. God bless all of you. God bless you people who also will put match results from years gone by on Facebook, or ads from the newspaper on Facebook. I love those.
Brett Williams does a lot of that stuff. Yeah,
Brett, if you ever hear us on these podcasts, which I know he doesn't, I wish he did, because we all want to thank him profusely. He does such an amazing job with this stuff, And And
Yeah.
it's just it's the cream of my coffee every single day. If I'm scrolling Facebook and there's an ad for Altoona, Pennsylvania from 1978, come on now, that's the goods right there, man.
Secondhand Heroes and Home for Wayward Villains is a comic book shop and gaming store that also features Magic the Gathering and D&D. Located at 18184 Leesville Road in Evanston, Virginia, Secondhand Heroes is your one-stop shop for you to get your nerd on. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. They don't close until the dice stop rolling. They buy, sell, trade, barter, and haggle, specializing in collectible toys, both vintage and modern, comics, Magic the Gathering, video games, console, and arcade cabinets to play, all set to free play. Host your game night with us. Monday night D&D video game competitions, and so much more. Something for the collector and gamer in us all. Call 434-317-0121 or shoot us an email with any questions to secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. Note, secondhandheroesva@gmail.com. That's 2ND, handheroesva@gmail.com. Come game with us.
It's AIWF. Wanna see the best wrestling? Where to connect? The squared circle, the place you have to earn your respect. So get right with the program or you'll get left. AIWF across the US and all over the globe. We are live and direct. So tune and see who wins and who suffer the loss. This match just got you over one.
I want to bring up something that you just mentioned. You said it looks like you're going back to the Hall of Fame this year.
I want to. Yeah, it's in October, and I want to be there. Yeah.
Well, so far, I've discussed it with my wife, and it looks like we're going to be up there as well this year. So it's a couple-hour drive. It's my birthday weekend. I already spoke to KJ Britton about it. Yeah, I know him pretty frequently. That's Ringside Gemma's father. So I got to speak with him recently. I speak to him on a somewhat regular basis, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think I might. I'm going to spend a couple days up there. I think probably coming on Sunday morning or Saturday night. Saturday is my birthday. Sunday's the Hall of Fame, so I'm looking to come in on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the one thing you got to do. If you're up in the Albany, New York area, right, which I always do this. It's a store I worked at when I was young. You have to go to a Stewart's bread and butter shop. They usually have a gas station in front. That's the Saratoga-made ice cream. It is the best ice cream you will ever taste, particularly the vanilla. You have to stop. Just get a cup. Go and may have a cup of vanilla, and you will be shocked at the difference between locally made fresh ice cream and everything else that's out there. It's spectacular. So if you're coming to upstate New York, you got to go to Stewart's, my friend.
I will definitely check that out, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I just kind of looked it up when I saw that it was that particular weekend. I said, I think I want to go to this, and I already booked the hotel, so I'm looking. It's going to be fun. I think. Yeah. Yep.
I have to get my plans in order for that. I definitely want to be there this year. I did have a very good time last year, and I think so. It'd be nice to see you in the flesh, and it's a lot of other people. I'm really good friends with a lot of people up there. I grew up near there, so yeah. Yeah, I want to be there. I definitely want to be there. I had a good time. I had such a nice time last year. It was really great. Bring a suit, though. They make you wear a suit to the banquet.
Yeah, I saw.
And they are serious about it.
All the instructions. Yeah.
Yeah, they're deadly serious about that.
Yeah. I did get to meet Seth Turner last year at the NWA 76th anniversary show. He just so happened to be there. And I introduced myself, and he was like, "Oh, I know exactly who you are." That dude is so freaking nice. Very friendly guy. And it was amazing sitting there having a conversation with him. And I was going to try to make it up there last year, and I wasn't able to. I don't know what exactly happened. I can't remember now. But this year, it looks like we're going forward with it and going to be able to make it up there. So, yeah.
But last year Bill Apter was to be inducted,
right?
In one of the categories, and as well as Kurt Angle, neither could be there for that particular day. In fact, Bill had gotten sick and could not be there. So I was coming up just to see Bill, to be honest with you. The drawing thing for me was Bill Apter getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. I wanted to be there. Well, unfortunately, he couldn't be there. But then I contacted Seth Turner about it before we knew Bill was going to be sick. And when Bill was sick, Seth says, why don't you come up and do some of the things Bill would do? He said, come up and interview these wrestlers at the gathering, the afternoon before the thing. And they have kind of like a meet and greet / mini convention before the thing, before the awards that evening. So I came up and interviewed a whole mess of wrestlers there, the Godfather and Tony Atlas and Tito Santana. And it was a stone cold blast. And I got to meet a couple of people who I'm still friends with to this minute last year. And when they all knew I was local, they all got excited because I grew up in that area, and it all felt natural to me. So to me, it gives me a chance to go visit my old hometown. And, this year they're inducting Tony Atlas, Tino Santana, Trish Stratus. Who knows who else is going to be inducted this year? So it's going to be,
it's still
a lot
early.
of fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It's affordable, and it's old homework for me. So there's a lot of reasons I want to come up again. And I want to see Seth.
Yeah.
Seth Turner's a great guy too, like you said, very accommodating, and he was very, very good to me on my first visit. So, we made a new friend, which is, hey, you can't get enough of those,
I guess you're right. What do you want to talk about now? What is there that the Outdated Wrestling Hour and Bob Smith? What do you have coming up? Anything
What
exciting?
What do we have coming up? Well, as long as I'm surviving from week to week, it's a good thing. I don't know when this show is coming out. As we sit here speaking, we just released a show, and we usually have a theme topic. The one that just came out today, which is, as we tape this, it's May 23rd. Steve Gennarelli from Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, and Howard Baum, the gadabout who has been in and out of the wrestling business for years. We talk about wrestling conventions, and that's out right now. Next week, on the 30th of May, we've scheduled Barry Horowitz, who has a new book out, the famous WWE, I guess, I don't want to call him he's a preliminary wrestler, basically, but he also had a lot of runs in a lot of different territories.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah,
he was the professional wrestler. That's right.
And he was
June
a phenomenal.
6th, he was good.
Yeah.
He was really good. Yep. June 6th, we have some guy named Rick Del Santo. Do you know anything about him? He's been bugging me and all this other stuff. I don't know.
Never heard of him.
And on the 13th, I have scheduled Ed Helinsky, who was the original WWE magazine editor, and he did everything on the magazine during the earliest days. And we're going to compare and contrast the kind of jobs we had in wrestling magazines, which should be a hoot and a holler. So that should be pretty good. And I'm up to that right now. We also have the Entertainment Hour right now. We have Star Trek.
Nice.
Brian R. Solomon and Steve Gennarelli and I, who are all first series Trek Mania guys, talk about that for about an hour and a half, and not a second is wasted because it's made us all, including several of my listeners, go, I got to go find these original episodes. These guys really knocked that out of the park again on that particular episode. So it's our sister publication. We come out now whenever we do an episode. I mean, I literally finish it and publish it. It's out in the wild. Then I promote it after the fact because it's harder to track down entertainment guests than it is the wrestling people at this point for me.
Right.
So in any event, no, things are going well. We got a lot of exciting things coming up, including a couple of names for the Wrestling Hour that may shock you a little bit in terms of A-listers, but we'll see. Again, when people tell me, yeah, if you're like me, my friend, how many no shows or late people do you get that you book? Right? I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. Sometimes you get disappointed. We'll put it that way about something. I'll be there Thursday at 6 to record these shows, and they either don't show or they'll contact you at 5:58 and 30 seconds and go, something's come up. So then you have a hole in your schedule and you have to reschedule and do all these things. It's not easy sometimes. You know better than anybody, Rick. These things are it's a good thing it's a labor of love, or we'd be pitching our laptop out into the cold night air sometimes.
Yeah, I've had people fall asleep on me and then oh, I'm sorry I fell asleep. And then as it's like 4 hours later and I was like, all right, well, we'll reschedule. And I never do. There's just, people that just ignore you. You know what I mean? It's not easy being a podcast or when you're trying to book guests, and I'm always trying to, I got a lot of guests booked, and I have guys in the waiting that we're talking to that we're just trying to set up a date, or some guys that definitely want to. They just have to wait because of their availability and stuff like that opens up a little bit. But the next few weeks, I do have some really good stuff coming up, so I'm very excited. As I said, next week will be Tony Gurria. I'm trying to remember. I got Anthony Brennan who's coming up. We're going to be talking about Survivor Series 1990. That guy's brain when it comes to the history of professional wrestling, 1980s and 90s professional wrestling, is kind of amazing. I'm sure you've spoken to him before, or maybe. He's just, especially the Savoldi territory, he loves like anything that they've done. So we're going to be talking about some classic WWF, which I don't really talk about that much on here, but we do have a lot of really great stuff coming up in the works.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, when you asked me to come on again, I was very, very pleased. I haven't done your show probably about a year at this point, I would think, something like that.
Maybe a little longer. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good that you asked me. As you folks we've already let the cat out of the bag. He's coming on my show as well, and we're going to talk about a few things. But this is first and foremost, it's fun. Yeah. But I have a little problem. Just when you mean the wall and everybody in the world listening here, I just recorded a show where we had, if you ever have a guest come on and he just can't get on with you in your recording studio, either you can't hear him or vice versa, or he's not showing up, or it's garbled, or there's problems, or this or that. Now, I just recently had a guest come on and I couldn't get his audio up. I couldn't see what he's doing at his end. And I could hear myself on, but I couldn't hear him. So I tried again. Switched to another studio, tried again. So I said, all right, if all else fails, take your phone out. I'll give you a link and use this studio. Bang, I got him.
Yeah.
So this is the better part of an hour, right? Just setting up. And I'm ready to go now, thank God. And I hit the record button. But you know what I forgot to do? As I was telling Rick before, I invested in the state-of-the-art podcast mic, the Shure SM7B. Right, Michael Jackson sang Thriller through this microphone. Did you know that? It's true.
No, I did not. No.
It's absolutely true. And this is considered the broadcast standard. This microphone, right? I forgot to reset it between studios. In other words, I had it set up for the A studio, went to the B studio. I was so happy to hear him. I just said, let's hit the record button and go. We're up now, and the whole thing is over. It's clipping. My track was so loud. It's like garbled. And now I don't know what to do with the entire damn show. I'm just sick. I'm like, oh my God. What I'm thinking of doing is re-recording the questions, because the second track, the guy I had the problem with, he's fine, right? He's clear as a bell talking to his Samsung telephone. Me with the $600 microphone, right? Well, yeah, it's just a mess. So I have to figure out what I'm doing with this track, or just re-recording the show. I'm not sure yet, because this is going to re-edit this thing is going to take a week and a half. I mean, literally a week and a half to put it together. I don't know what to do. Help me. Help me, Rick Del Santo. Help me. I'm imploring you. Help me.
I do have a funny story regarding something sort of similar. I was using StreamYard at the time still.
Mm-hmm.
I hit record, or at least I thought I did. I think I might have had some sort of connection issue with the DC Mad Dog Drake. Okay. Met him at the New England Hall of Fame 2 years ago. I was very excited to meet him, as I was a huge fan of his as a kid, and I did not know it because he looked completely different, that he was sitting right next to me. He was getting inducted that year. When he got called up, I said, as soon as the event was over, I watched him get up. I followed him out the door to introduce myself and talk to him. We became friends on Facebook. I asked him if he'd like to do a podcast. Absolutely. Apparently I hit record, but I didn't hit record. We sat there for an hour talking, and the only thing I got was the introduction. And then something happened. Not quite sure. It's been over a year since we've been trying to schedule ourselves to record. Every time that we've been able to schedule, that we come up with a date, something happens. You know what I mean? So hopefully we had it. I was supposed to record with him a couple weeks ago, but then I guess he got booked for GrappleCon, and then he lost his voice over the weekend. So we ended up saying give it a couple weeks. So yeah, hopefully soon we'll be able to rebook that, and I'll get that interview, because DC Mad Dog Drake was a phenomenal professional wrestler.
I will say I was on another podcast once, and we talked for 45 minutes, and it was really good. Really good. We were both humming, and then I hear, "Ugh!" Never hit the record button. You got to hit the record button. And sometimes you think you did when you didn't, and it was all lost in the ether. It just never got recorded in any fashion, which means you have to go back to square one. And it's like, that is just, you want to hit yourself in the head like Sneaking Pete Puma in the Bugs Bunny cartoon. You just want to punish yourself for being that silly. But you know what? There's situations, like I said, I spent the better part of an hour getting somebody all set up, worrying about what they had to do, totally forgot what I had to do. And then I hit that record button prematurely, and I paid a heavy price for it, baby. What am I going to do? What can I do? So you live, you learn, you realize if these things happen, don't panic. And I wasn't panicking. That's the funny part, because you know me, I have 2 different studios. I've got a Rode recording console. I could do a podcast on my phone if I really had to. I know 4 different ways to do these things, and I still blew it. So what can I say?
I bought a pair of Apple earbuds. Okay,
I just did too.
Just so I could plug them in case I need to use my phone for a podcast, because sometimes I record in the basement. I have a basement office here. I have my turntable set up, all my record collection behind me, and I record my podcast. And there's sometimes the internet's not great down here. If I'm using something like StreamYard, I freeze. And so if I have to use my phone, I'll use my phone on occasion. And through those Apple earbuds, it doesn't sound terrible. You know what I mean? It sounds, I could still pull off a decent sounding podcast using that.
Well, that's the big secret of podcasting, is in a great. I'll tell you what, I ran into Bill Apter at the Philadelphia Rob Feinstein convention. 1st April, I did the show, right? And I said, "Oh gosh, I got to record. I haven't seen you in person." So I whip out my cell phone, my Samsung cell phone, and I record. And I play it back, listening to the file on the phone, and you hear a whole mess of crowd noise and all this other stuff. And geez, I don't know if I'm going to pull this off. So I put it through my 2 services, and it came out fantastic. I mean, sometimes you just don't know. Sometimes you think this isn't going to be usable, but you go ahead and try it anyway. And sometimes it comes out really, really well. It's kind of up to the fates and whatever equipment you're privy to, but again, you got to take a chance. I since have bought a handycorder, or not a handycorder, but a Zoom audio recorder it's stereo that I can use for off-site interviews, and it's only about the size of a deck of playing cards. Why would I not invest in that? So when I go to Albany this year, if I want to do some podcast work, I can just whip out the handy recorder and just go to town. And once I put it through the filtering, the mastering and all that stuff, it's going to sound mint. So it really is kind of a golden age for doing this stuff. You don't have to haul around like bags and bags of equipment to do an off-site podcast anymore, as long as you kind of know what you're doing going in. It's fun. Yeah. It really is a lot of fun. I
bought 2 mini mics that I plug the adapter thing into my thing. The 2 mics are wireless, they're Bluetooth, so they just picked them up, and I can do that. I've recorded interviews on site at shows and stuff like that, and it's a blast. So that I'm able to do that, provided sometimes the crowd noise, if there's a ring going on, people in the ring, it will affect it, but sometimes you can fix that stuff.
I kind of would almost prefer to record with my own stuff rather than rely on like bringing my console and my good mics and bringing them into a place with Wi-Fi, especially if it's like, being used by like 80 different people at the same time. I just worried it won't be as clear and it'll drop out and stuff like that. So I would almost rather bring my own equipment that's handheld rather than, because I've used it and it came out fantastic. So why would I not do it,
Absolutely.
Podcasting, folks,
Absolutely.
they're switching off their cell phones all over. You do realize this, Rick? We are talking about the nuts and bolts of how we do these things, and I bet people are like, they're switching us off.
I don't know how many people really, really record their podcast on the phone. I'm sure a good portion of people just record a lot on their phone. You know what I mean? You could definitely tell, or a tablet or something like that, not using a regular microphone.
Spotify's, they have a part of Spotify is their podcast arm, and they were telling people just use your phone. I know, because when I was selecting a podcast host, I looked at everybody and I considered using Spotify, because at that point you could use clips of their music in your podcast. You can't do it anymore, but at that point they offered that. So I was considering it, but then I read that they, just whip out your phone and start your show. We'll take care of the rest. I'm like, really?
Yeah, they had a whole program you could use and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And honestly, it was Anchor at first, and then they changed it to Spotify for creators. And honestly, it started as an app that also had other podcasts on it. Like, you could listen to other, it was just hosted there, and then I guess Spotify bought it, and then it just kind of became less and less of a actually good program. I've been using it since the beginning of this podcast, but some of the tools in there, they're just not as interesting. I just use what I do. You know what I mean? I just edit it, put it all together, and just throw it up through there, and then it just comes out fine. So I can't use their tools anymore, but I hope they don't take my show down for not saying anything positive about them.
All I know is just that I'm listening to you and I'm jealous, because you would not believe the late nights and weekends that I spend doing this stuff. I'm really hands-on and I'm really meticulous, and I think the proof's in the pudding. In fact, I think Generelli or somebody was talking to me today about the podcast that came out. He said, "My God, the editing job you did." And I said, "Well, thank you very much." He said, "Yeah, I could tell, because I was there in the conversation, and what I heard was like just what you needed to hear, with everything that we didn't need to hear cut out." Because I will edit stuff out. I mean, if something is garbled, or if somebody speaks, or if somebody says something to me is particularly troublesome in terms of factual, I will cut it out. I have to. I just won't take a chance.
I've done it. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't take a chance on putting stuff that isn't accurate out there. Or
if somebody says something stupid, like.
And I try to keep my show. I'm not saying it's family friendly, my show, but I do try to keep it clean.
Right.
To me, using the F word a lot is like giving the finger as a bad guy wrestler. It's cheap heat. It's just cheap heat.
Yeah.
I have no use for that. So I will find myself cursing every so often. And I now have a bleep machine, and I can bleep my own self out. You will hear, if you listen to my podcast, you'll hear the occasion beep, because it's like, I just think
I did pick up on that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to curse. I just don't think it's necessary. I would like to have a general audience. I don't want to offend anybody. Basically, that's it.
I mean, you shouldn't have to. It's like listening to the radio back in the day. You know what I mean? You never heard stuff like that. But now it's like way less. They're way more loose now, especially if you listen to like XM or whatever, Sirius XM, So you could, FM, AM, FM radio, but you're hearing more and more things sneak in there.
Well, I thought it was an industry standard practice, though, too, if you do curse or use, let's say, the F word, that you should designate that particular episode with an E for explicit, just so people don't get ambushed as they start to listen to it. I think that's fair.
Right.
And that's what I do.
It asks you, I think, when you're uploading the episode, and I know there was episodes in the past. Some of my earlier episodes I'm not necessarily proud of, but I had a bunch of different people that were on the show, as far as and we just discussed weekly wrestling and stuff like that, and some of them would not have the best language skills, I guess, so eventually, as far as that goes. But, it's, I try now just to keep it more general and stuff like that.
Yep. Hats off to you for that, because it's like, I don't know, I had a friend of mine when I was in high school. So, Bob, he was Southern. He said, "Bob, swearing is a man's way of crying." And I went, "What?" "Yeah, you're disappointed, so then you swear, and you shouldn't be swearing. You shouldn't be crying either. Who's good or whatever." And I went, "Okay, fine." And then I don't know if I agree with that summation, but I just think that I don't know. I don't need the vulgarity. I try to keep it light on my show. Every so often a curse word will slip in there, but overall, I don't want anybody going F this, F that, F this. It's to me, it's just. get to the root of what you're talking about and do it in a civilized manner, if you'd be so very kind.
Well, Bob, I think we're going to wrap it up a little bit now because it's getting a little late. We've gone a little longer than we normally do. So we've talked about what's coming up on your show. Why don't you tell everybody where you can be found, and as far as social media, and be where you can find the Outdated Wrestling and Entertainment Hours.
Thank you. You know, to be succinct about these things, it took me the better part of 2.5 years to go, wait a minute. Here's how I'm going to tell you how to find me. Go on your browser, on your phone, or on your laptop, or whatever you use, and type in Bob Smith Outdated Hour. Bang. Everything will come up right then and there. You don't have to do anything more than that. It always comes up. You will find many of the various things. If you go to the website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com, there is a list of only half of the apps we're available. We're unavailable virtually every podcast app there is, including some I don't know how it got on there. Have you found that about your podcast too? You're on things like Podtail.
Some of these apps I don't even...
Podtail. I don't even know how it ended up there. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Apparently, you know, we all use something called an RSS feed, which is the feed from the host. And I guess anybody who wants to get that feed can get it. So I say, God bless you. That counts as a download. Knock yourself out. Old podcast app I've never heard of, but but in any event, no. We're also on YouTube for people, older people who, and I find out there's a lot of them who just want to hear their podcast on YouTube. They don't want to go fishing for it. And that's fine.
Right. There is a whole audience for it there. Yeah.
But basically, that's it. Go to Outdated Wrestling Hour and Bob Smith and type it in your browser and then go to town. You will find it with ease. Secondly, we're also, like I said, available on YouTube if you just want to switch on there, the Outdated Entertainment or Wrestling Hours. To find me, I prefer Facebook. I'm the Bob Smith that sings with B.B. King when you find me there. There's a picture of me with B.B. King singing with B.B. King. I'm also outdated_Bob on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads, which I'm on, but I'm not on. I never do anything on that thing. And I'm also still on X too, or X, however you pronounce it now. I don't look at that.
Still Twitter to me.
Yeah, me too. But I will put it like an ad up for it on every week when we do a new show, so you can find me there. But I do most of my kibitzing and most of my advertisements are on Facebook. It's my jam. It's the easiest one. Most of my friends are there, so please find me wherever if you've enjoyed this conversation, seek us out. We're here to entertain you all, and we'll teach you everything you want to know about wrestlers like Pete Sanchez, Pinky Larson, and the Fabulous Kangaroos. And how many incarnations were they, the Fabulous Kangaroo? There's a whole show on that. You know how many kangaroos there were?
I did not know this until somewhat recently, just a few years ago, because it was always a name I heard, saw a couple matches, read about them in magazines as I was a kid, like going buying older wrestling magazines. And it wasn't until recently somehow I got them in my head and I looked them up. I didn't realize there was so many incarnations of the tag team.
Tons, but it evolved, though. It's like an old rock band. Like one guy would retire, they'd replace him with someone else. Then the other guy would retire, they replace him with someone else. And it just kept perpetuating because it continued to draw. They were the Australian tag team with the Boomerangs. And always bad guys. And I think the most famous of all of them was Al Costello, to be honest with you. I think he got the most mileage out of it, too. And then managed other people as the Kangaroos.
Yep.
So there was a long career and a lucrative one, and there you see, you learned a little bit about the Kangaroos just from us kibitzing. Imagine what you'll hear if you tune into the show properly.
There you go. Tune into, go look them up on YouTube, but definitely check out the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Bob, I want to thank you for returning to the show. I had a blast talking to you. Always a great time talking to you, Bob.
That's the idea. Let's have fun, y'all. I mean, and that goes for all you out there too listening. I'm in this stuff to have a blast. I'm out to have fun, rub elbows with some people who know and love old wrestling as much as I do, and that's basically it. I'm just reliving my youth. When I do these shows, I'm the Bob Smith at Rockville Center's offices for PWI. I'm 27 again. Seriously, that's what I feel like when I talk about wrestling from the old days, and it's helping keep me young because God knows my body don't feel young no more. I am a walking mess of aches and pains. I've got pains in places where I didn't even know how I had places. It's getting ridiculous at this point. In fact, this morning I was at the doctor for something so stupid. I don't even want to mention it here. It was just crazy. No, I'll tell you what it was. This is the only time I'm ever going to mention this. And I can't believe I'm doing it in public. I'm cleaning myself this morning, right? I'm out of the shower, and I have a bad habit of using Q-tips in my ears. The cotton left the Q-tip and plunged itself deep into my ear canal. So I'm at the doctor at about 11 o'clock this morning, having the doctor remove the Q-tip out of my ear. Am I old?
That's happened to me. Yeah, sorry.
Did you have to have it removed?
No, I didn't have to have it. Somehow I was able to take a piece of tweezers and work its way out somehow, and my wife assisted me. But it was in there pretty good, and I ended up getting it all out. I was nervous as all hell when it happened.
Well, all I know is when I was young, this never would have been a problem. It's just that when you get older, it gets harder to clean yourself, I could tell you a lot more about that, but I won't because, well, just picture the man behind this voice and you won't want to know. So that's it for me. That's it.
Thank you, Bob, and I look forward to doing this again with you.
Yes, and he's coming on my show too. So we're doing a one for the other, and so look for him on the Outdated Hour as well. And Rick, getting to know you has been an absolute, just totally enjoyable thing for me. I feel like I've known you for 15 years at this point, and I'm looking forward to probably getting together with you this fall. That sounds like a lot of fun.
We definitely got to do that. So look forward to that. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.